probably an inordinate number watching us this evening, so members of council, you're being watched. I don't need to say that, do I? Welcome. The clerk will report on attendance.
Councillor Cardy will be unable to attend due to illness.
Thank you. Declaration of pecuniary interest by any member of council? None. Delegations, etc. And the first is Adrienne Patterson. Is Adrienne in attendance? Yes. A presentation of a painting to the County of Brant in appreciation of councillors' support of Brant Colors Plein Air event in 2017. Presentation requested by the Tourism Advisory Committee, and we have a tourist presenting.
Well, not really, but Your Worship, thank you very much. Won't take much of your time other than to formally introduce Adrienne and remind members of council that Adrienne will be speaking of an event that took place in September. It was called Brant Colors Plein Air Art Festival, which brought artists who paint in the plein air style from across Ontario, as far away as Ottawa, including as well into the states, Western New York and Pennsylvania. There were artists there as well. And Adrienne has asked through the Tourism Advisory Committee if she could make a presentation to council.
Welcome. Please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, council members. I'm going to lower this since I'm so short. There we go. I'm not going to read the entire presentation I made to the Tourism Committee, the Tourism Advisory Committee back in December, but I just wanted to say that I really appreciated the support of Brant County Council having this event. I am a resident of Brant County. I love where I live in St. George, and to see an event that was brought forth by both Brantford City as well as the county, to get out into the county, it was really exciting to be able to be a part of. I recently sustained some injuries that has brought me to painting as a means of healing and retraining my brain and having some enjoyment. I love to get out in the county. I walk in a number of places throughout the county. We have such a beautiful landscape that surrounds us. I've always been a huge fan of the Group of 7 landscape painters, so to see an event that was brought forth in my community that kind of blended all of those things was really exciting. It was a very challenging event. It was 3 days of non-stop painting, and if anyone remembers the incredibly blistering heat wave that we had at early September of last year. But it was really fun to get out and to see people who are also out walking and being very curious about what the event was. So I really enjoyed it. I would consider myself an amateur artist. I certainly dabble with a number of styles of painting. It's something I really enjoy doing. When we had the exhibit at the end that all the artists could lay out their art, there certainly were many professionals who participated in the event, and to see their art was really exciting. So as an amateur, what I wanted to do was to donate my art to the County Tourism Advisory Committee to really bring other people to have the, if you want to call it, the guts to participate in an event like this. You don't have to be a professional to enjoy your county and to dabble a little bit with paint. So I donated them to the committee, and they had already seen them. They're here today, so I'll just show them to you. But ultimately, I wanted just to thank council for supporting the event, and I really hope that it goes forward. I think it was wildly successful for a first year to have 45 participants. I know of other communities that hold events like this, and they certainly didn't get that amount of people participating for a first year. So I'd like to be able to participate again this coming year, or perhaps be involved in some of the planning. So here is the art that I'm donating. I hope you at least recognize my amateur skills to show.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Mohawk Chapel. Mohawk Chapel. Not far from where we are, that's Penman's Dam. And the final one, Apps Mill. I actually painted this on the first day of fall, which was why I did fall colors. The reason for the dream catchers, when I first saw the event presented, what really came to mind, I was once a urban planner, and I'm very into community development. So when I saw that tourism was so involved, I wanted to blend our community. So having the connections that we have to Six Nations, it made me think of dream catchers. So the entire series is called Dreamscapes, Catch a Glimpse of Brant. So here are 3 glimpses of Brant that I painted, and I hope that other people will enjoy it and get involved in activities like this. So thank you very much.
Our appreciation, Adrian, you are so thoughtful. Thank you for participating in the very best you, and we'll see that they are displayed.
Great, thank you very much.
Very much.
Thank you, Russ.
Members of council, before proceeding to the next delegation, we'll revert to approval of the agenda, noting that there is an agenda, there is an addition that's been incorporated, and there's a further addition being the Brant County OPP Detachment Committee report, which has just been prepared from a meeting late this afternoon and is presented to council. Will be presented to council, especially if you approve it to be presented. So I need a motion to approve those. Councillor Coleman, second by Councillor Pierce. Councillor Chambers, please.
Just by a comment, Mr. Mayor, with regard to the addendum, the resolution that is proposed on the addendum, I may have some issues with that. If indeed it does come up, I've discussed with this Councillor Gatward about her resolution, so I'm in support of the addendum, but I may have issues with that resolution procedurally. And Councillor Gatward and I have discussed this.
It has to do with a resolution that's been added onto the agenda.
Yeah, and Councillor Gatward is aware of my concerns, and we will cross that bridge if and when we come to it.
Thank you. We note your views on that, and you may be speaking. Thank you. Anyone else? Any other additions by members of council? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we'll move on to 4B, being Keith Curry, Formworks, Inc., presentation of draft plans for County of Brant OPP Detachment Station. Mr. Curry, please proceed when you're ready. Yep. And this is your second exercise today with us. Handed these out. And this is located on Rest Acres Road, south of our big arena, Twin Pad Arena, on a piece of land purchased earlier in the year. We don't have a municipal number yet, I don't believe.
I don't think so.
But we may get one.
So you can see, this is the site right here, just south of the 401. Rest Acres and Bethel.
We don't have a municipal number.
So this is, we're at the design development stage of this building, and the drawings you'll see today are the design drawings that, oh, sorry. Yeah, so the drawings you're seeing today are the design drawings that have been developed in conjunction with the design committee for the County of Brant. We just have the floor plans and some elevations and renderings for you to see, and then we can open it to any questions. So the building in total is just over 22,000 square feet. It's all on one floor with the exception of one mezzanine. This is the site plan that you're seeing here. To the left is 24 or Rest Acres Road, and to the south of the property is Bethel Road. Access to the site is off of Bethel Road. Because it's a highway, we are not allowed access off the highway, and we have to enter the site from the side road. The area in blue is the building footprint. The brown areas are the parking spaces that will be utilized by the OPP officers. And to the west and to the south of the building is visitor parking. We have, at the rear of the parking, there's the last parking spaces you see to the right. It sort of denotes the area of the site we're utilizing, and it's a 3-acre parcel.
They gotta find my nameplate first before they get mine back.
Thank you very much, and we'll now move on to the third deputation. Miles
Heather, we didn't read
Rusak.
this one, though.
Request for installation of speed bumps outside of Paris Central School. I would invite Mr. Rusak to the podium. Welcome. Please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, councilors, staff. Thank you for having me here today. So I was representing a group of concerned citizens here in town and a group of concerned parents that approached me and asked me to speak on their behalf. Given to council in advance of the meeting is a list of no less than a dozen instances of reckless driving on Broadway Avenue outside of Paris Central School. It's no secret that our town is getting bigger and bigger, our county is getting bigger and bigger, and traffic concerns are becoming more and more prevalent as this happens. Looking to Grand River Road going into the downtown core, I'm sure you all know, it can get a little bit silly trying to get through there in the morning. What we're starting to see is a little bit of road rage happening in our small town. By the time people get to Charlotte Street, they are angry and upset, and they don't want to wait anymore to get down to the intersection. So they're turning off onto Charlotte and angrily speeding by Paris Central School on Broadway Avenue East. Some of these documented occurrences actually come with video footage and eyewitness accounts. I myself witnessed a car almost strike a youth crossing guard, and the car had the audacity to honk at the youth crossing guard as if they were in the wrong. So there's bigger infrastructure at play here, and I know that the county is addressing that. I know the OPP are addressing that. I view this, and this group that I represent views this as a small solution, maybe a temporary solution, but it's a solution nonetheless. The unfortunate thing is, more often than not, somebody needs to get hurt in order for these kinds of changes to take place. Not 2 weeks ago, a 4-year-old was killed in the GTA caused by reckless driving outside of a school. I don't want to see that happen. My daughter attends Paris Central in grade 3. She's sitting right there. I don't want her to be the example of why this needs to change. I don't want anyone to be the example of why this needs to change. It's a very simple solution to a very big problem. And like I say, it may be a temporary one, but a group of 12 or so that I represent feel that it's a strong way forward. So I do encourage council to please look into this, and I leave it in your most capable hands from here out. And I'm open to any questions. I don't know if I can answer them, but I will certainly try my best.
Thank you for your presentation. Questions of the delegation, please. Councillor Gatward.
Thank you for coming forward, and my question is, have you or any of the group ever contacted the OPP?
Yes, there have been 3 reports made over the past couple of years about these instances.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Wheat?
Just a comment, you're referring to the death in Toronto?
Yes.
There was no driver in that car.
No, but it was involving,
There was no driver in the car, sir.
well, okay.
Any other question? Councillor Balma?
Appreciate your coming through, your worship. If we found other traffic calming measures to alleviate the situation, that would also be acceptable?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you.
And I would advise Public Works initiated a safety zone according to provincial legislation for Central School. It's unfortunate it isn't working better if it isn't. Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I did bring to community service sometime, I would say fall time, because I did get a letter from a constituent talking about this exact same thing happening on Emily Street and Charlotte Street. And I know the OPP were engaged with that, and we're going to be looking into it as well. So I think there's been several occurrences where they've been looking into this.
Councillor Chambers?
Mr. Mayor, I'm wondering, through you and with your permission, I know Public Works Committee is looking at speeding in general in terms of a new initiative, namely
Yes.
education, engineering, and enforcement. I'm wondering if, for the benefit of the people here, I could, through you, ask the General Manager of Public Works just to briefly outline to Council and the delegation where that initiative is at, and indeed what that initiative hopes to accomplish, because I see it fitting right into this issue.
Yes. Thank you. Would you, please?
Yeah.
Respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Your Worship, through you, so the Public Works Committee has heard, we've discussed with staff, we're going to call the campaign a Give Us a Break campaign, the play on the words break, as in terms of people slowing down. It's going to be a mix, as Councillor Chambers said, of engineering, education, and enforcement. We've got a few sign concepts. We feel it's a very standout sign. It has more of an emotional plea to the motorist as opposed to maybe the more generic speed signs. As well, we're looking into a number of technologies, the radar signs that we've used, I think somewhat successfully, buying more of those. And then we're exploring a number of what we would call visual impediments, road paint, which we're out of the road paint season, and some other options that we can do on the roadside to encourage people to slow down. And then further to that, we're working with our communications department to draft up a education campaign. And our communications program is, I think, is certainly maturing, and we think that with the communications resources we now have at the county, we can launch a good campaign with our partners at the OPP. So that's all underway. It's quite a bit, and of course it's the snow removal season too. So the road staff are certainly juggling a lot of balls, but we're keeping that initiative moving around with the idea that we can have it all up and running for what we'd call the road painting season. But we'll start putting some of those initiatives forward as we complete them. So that's something that we're working on. I think it ties in with what was being requested. I think what we'll be relying on Public Works Committee and the public for those is to give us an idea of where these areas are. We have a good idea, but there's a lot of other areas as well. So, and then we can start looking at moving that campaign to specific areas. So, Your Worship.
Thank you for your report. Any other question? Councillor Powell.
Through you to Miles. Miles, would it be helpful if the cars on Grand River Street proceeding south, and as you said, they want to zip over to beat that, to have a sign on Charlotte Street and maybe Emily, no right turns between 8 and 9 a.m. on school days?
Personally, I think that would be great. It's going to cause more, of course, delays on Grand River. My fear with signs and the campaigns, and with all due respect, I mean, that does sound great, but we're dealing with angry drivers. And by the time you're angry, a sign or road paint, it doesn't stop you, it doesn't slow you down. You know, we need a physical impediment that's going to stop them from this behavior. And that's why the idea of speed bumps came up amongst this group, because, you know, you hit it hard enough, you're going to damage your vehicle. You're going to learn real fast that you need to slow down at that moment. So, I mean, I would personally love to see a sign like that, but I don't know what that would look like in the long term, but it would easily be a quick step in the right direction.
Councillor Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Miles, thank you very much for bringing this forward. This is an ongoing problem, as is every other street in Paris. It has been talked about in the past, only spoken about, about making that area one way. Okay, making Broadway one way, and therefore you're eliminating the whole problem. It was never moved forward just to examine or anything, but was just spoken about. So maybe that could be part of the looking into for the Works Department, that they could maybe look at that area, and because it is unique with the island of green space in the middle, of making it one way. So it's another suggestion.
And so my question to council, and again, with all due respect, is, I'm hearing through multiple councilors that this has been heard of, that I'm not the first person to stand here and say something has to happen. So if it's being looked into, and it's being looked into, and it's being looked into, when is it going to be looked into? And that's what I'm here asking for today, is for council to make a motion to commit to a date of some form of progress, more than just, it'll be looked into. I appreciate that very much, and I love what you're suggesting, I really do. But I would like to see something definitive that says council will look into it by X date, or will make an action by X date.
Councillor Coleman?
Mr. Mayor, and not to debate Councilor Smith's statement, this doesn't just happen in Paris, it happens in all communities in the county.
Well, of course.
And it also happens behind every school bus that we have in the county of Brant. They pull out and go around the school bus, and kids walking there. So it's not unique to this town.
I didn't see that it was.
It's a driver thing, and that's until we get drivers educated. There's the whole problem.
Interestingly enough, one of these events involves a school bus, and it was reported to the school board and to the transportation company behind the school buses, because it ran straight through a stop sign as if it wasn't there. And that was caught on video, which was interesting in itself. But yeah, I don't disagree with you. This is an ongoing issue everywhere. I think that there are some acute kind of nuances about this particular area in Paris, being that there is literally two ways in and out of our town, and one way if you're going through that direction. And so that's why people are trying to get around that roadblock by, unfortunately, going in front of a school a lot quicker than they should be.
Councillor Simon?
Mr. Mayor, if I could make a motion that we refer this to the Public Works Department and
No, we're
for
not
them-
dealing with that now, we're dealing with questions.
Okay.
We will get to that
Okay.
very shortly.
I thought we were finished.
Are there any other questions? If not, thank you for your
Thank you for your time. I
presentation.
sincerely appreciate it.
Oh, he's gotta wait till
Returning to the start of the delegations, the first one, could we have a motion of appreciation? Moved by Councillor Coleman, second by Councillor Gatward. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. The second one has been dealt with because we've dealt with the recommendation in the report. And thirdly, the one that was just presented, Councillor Coleman. Public Works Committee.
And if I'd like to add in a timely fashion, it be looked into.
Seconder, Councillor Bauma. Heard the resolution. Councillor Chambers, how do you?
I'm just wondering, and I support the resolution, just for the benefit of the presenter, I'm sure that if he establishes a contact, the progress on his request can be monitored, and hopefully it will be sooner rather than later. But I'm suggesting that he contact Public Works and become a contact person for that particular issue.
Excellent.
When we move forward with our education, enforcement, and engineering program, which is imminent, that area be considered and that he become a contact person for that.
That should speed it up. Thank you. Anyone further? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 5A, County of Brant Council Meeting, December minutes.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Gatward, that the County Brant Council minutes of December 19th, 2017 be approved.
Any comment by members? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Consent items. Consent items to be approved. Interim levy bylaw. Moved by Councillor Chambers.
Yeah, it's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor John Pierce that the interim tax levy be approved and that the appropriate bylaw be presented for council's consideration, and that bylaw is on our agenda this evening at the end of the meeting.
Moved and seconded. Any comment at this time? Councillor Gatward?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And the bylaw is available tonight, and there is possibly an amended bylaw that we could pass as well, relating to the resolution in the addendum, but it all hinges on number 1 in the community services report. Thank you.
Anyone else? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Over the page, consent items to be received, 1 to 8. Consent items to be received contained in the circulation folder, 1 to, how many? Oh, the bottom of the page, 9 I have. Any member of council wish any of the items withdrawn from the list for debate or discussion? Councillor Chambers?
You guys look all.
I was on such a roll. Councillor Simons, did you wish to comment? Councillor?
Mr. Mayor, we do not have circulation folder that you were talking about, so
What?
I don't know whether it's important or not, but it's not around, so.
It's around somewhere.
Okay.
What is the item being?
It's just circulation folder is somewhere. All
And-
these items have been circulated anyways.
Thank you. Just wanted to
So there's no item to be removed from the list, correct? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move the motion.
Pardon?
I'll move the motion. It wasn't put on the floor.
It wasn't moved?
No. You just asked if anybody wanted any item removed, so.
Moved by Councillor Miller, second by Councillor.
Coleman, that the following consent items
The
be,
list as indicated.
As indicated.
B and C.
consent items be received as
Received.
information.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
It was tough.
We're on to committee reports. A, Pocket Center Paris Old Town Hall Advisory Committee minutes.
move for myself, second by Councilor Pierce, that the Rocket Center / Pierce Old Town Hall minutes of January 5, 2018 be received with information.
Thank you. Councillor Simons. Any question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. B, Community Services Committee report, January 8.
Moved by
Councillor
myself,
Pierce.
seconded by Councilor Chambers, that the Community Service Committee report of January 8th, 2018 be approved, noting there are 4 recommendations.
Questions of the chair? Councillor Miller.
Can we remove item 1, please?
Item 1, removed to be debated separately,
Aye.
correct?
Yes.
Councillor Gatward?
That's what I was going to ask as well.
So you agree with that? Thank you.
Moving it for separate discussion.
So the report we're dealing with then are recommendations
2, 3, and 4.
2, 3, and 4. Any questions by members of council of those? Anyone? None? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Recommendation number 1. Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I read this recommendation, I was very concerned because the $400,000 in funds that we raised last year in taxes, first of all, weren't even mentioned in the motion anywhere from the committee discussion, but I don't believe that we've ever given such a large amount of
No.
taxpayer dollars to be put in reserves for a charitable organization. The Brant Waterways Foundation do great work. I worked with a board member on a trail from Brantford to the county line in the south, and they do marvelous work through their organization, working on trails and rivers and all the work they do. However, I'm just concerned about this large amount of tax dollars, since we didn't do the dike project, that we'd want to now put it in a reserve and use it with trail and river access improvements and the Brant waterways. So I'm suggesting instead, Mr. Mayor, that we reduce the taxes with this money, and,
That issue's not on the floor.
Cannot-
Point of order.
Yes, we cannot deal with that.
no, it's later in the agenda.
Thank you.
But I don't support this motion, or number one at all. I think that the money should be given back to the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Baum.
As has been discussed here previously, when money's left over from a project, it's always put back in reserves. It's never taken off the tax levy, so that would be quite an exception. Money's not earmarked for Brant Waterways Foundation. This is earmarked, and normally it would just go into general reserves. This money now will be going into a reserve set up specifically for trail improvement and river access. And with any organization, or if the county itself had projects to be done. So we're not giving it to an organization. We are keeping it for projects that would be done by the County of Brant.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If we have a large chunk of money earmarked for a project, it doesn't go through, I don't think it should be taken and put towards another project. I'd rather see that go through the budget process like that did originally. That way, at least at the budget process, we can have input, the public can have input, we can see how much, we're spending on this or that. So I don't agree with just taking the whole amount and using it for another function without going through the budget process.
Thank you. Members, any other member of council? Councillor Chambers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If Councillor Baum may correct me, but I believe that if the money is in a reserve, that any project that taps into that reserve has to have the approval of council prior to that project proceeding. So the project by project by project has to be approved by council. And that's part of the recommendation, I believe.
Any other member?
And I'd like a recorded vote, Mr. Mayor, when you're ready to call the vote, please.
Noted. Thank you. Any other member of council? So we have a recommendation that it be approved. All in favor? Thank you. Oppose? Do we have a score?
Tie vote, motion's defeated.
Tie vote. Is there a motion of council to deal with the matter? Councillor Chambers.
I'll move that the issue be referred back to the Community Services Committee for further deliberation.
Seconder for that motion, please. Councillor Pierce? All in favor? Pardon?
Can I ask a question?
You have a what?
Can I ask a question before we?
Yes, what's the question?
Given Councillor Chambers' motion, how does that impact a later motion coming up? Or are the two, I don't think they're independent, but I don't know how they're related either.
Well, I would ask the clerk resolution. Do you have a comment, Madam Clerk? Good. Thank you. Corporate Services Development Report. Do you want to continue? Councillor Gatward?
Yes, I have a question. if we refer the funding, $400,000 worth of unspent funding, back to community services, it's a budget matter, Mr. Mayor, that council should deal with, in my opinion.
Yes, it shall. Any recommendation dealt with by any committee must be dealt with by council. Committees can't make their own decisions.
That's correct. So I don't agree with it being referred back to community services.
No, I know that.
I think that we
Vote
should
against.
consider the motion later in the meeting, and if it's a tie vote, then we're kind of at a stalemate, and maybe we have to look at using that money for something else.
Have we dealt with that recommendation?
To refer it back to.
Yes.
No.
We have a motion to refer it back to the committee. There's nothing wrong with that motion. At least it can be put. Councillor Chambers.
Mr. Mayor, if the concern of some members are that the resolution that is been added to the agenda later on is a consideration, what committee should be aware of is that that resolution is a resolution to amend the budget, and that resolution has already been passed. We have adopted the budget, and so in my opinion, a resolution to amend the budget would be out of order because it would require a reconsideration, and a reconsideration motion must have notice. So the resolution that occurs later on the agenda as part of the addendum, in my opinion, is out of order anyway. And Councillor Gatwood and I have discussed this prior, but surely to amend a motion that has already been passed would require reconsideration, which would require a two-thirds majority, and certainly would require notice for the resolution to be in order. So it's my opinion that the motion that Councillor Gatwood is referring to that may impact on this motion is out of order anyway, so it should not impact this motion to refer the item back to the committee for further consideration.
Thank you. Councillor Gatwood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, my motion adds $400,000 of revenue on the revenue side of the county's budget, and it would reduce the taxes from 3.3% to 2.51%. It doesn't change the assessed value. It doesn't change the
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
assessment, which is in the
Point of
bylaw.
order, Mr. Mayor.
Please.
The councillor is debating the issue that is not before us, and if indeed it does come before us, she has every opportunity to debate it, but she cannot debate that motion that's not on the floor. We have a motion that's on the floor that she can debate.
And I guess all I'll say, Mr. Mayor, then, in response, is that the clerk and I discussed this earlier in the day, and she conferred with the treasurer, and
Oh, really?
the item that was passed earlier, the interim levy bylaw, there's no numbers attached to that interim levy bylaw. So this is doable. But if Councillor Chambers wants to defer it on a procedural matter, then that's a real shame, in my opinion, because we could waive notice and still have a vote to reconsider reducing the taxes, in my opinion.
And once again, Mr. Mayor, the councillor is arguing a resolution that is not before us. The resolution that is before us is to defer or refer it back to committee. So that's what's in order. The discussion which you've just heard is out of order.
Councillor Simons.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I could be out of order for this too, but I would like to make one comment, if I may. The recommendation that is on the Community Services Report number 1 is a recommendation that was not in the budget. So how does that get approved, and yet a new motion?
We've dealt with that. We've dealt with that, and that
After the budget.
the motion that was defeated, so it's not before us either.
I just wanted to bring that to the attention, that that was after the budget was approved. So, and I know it's not what we're speaking about now, so I'll move on.
Thank you. Councillor Chambers, did you wish to comment again?
Just to correct the councillor,
Yes.
the recommendation in the Community Services Report did not affect the budget. It did not change the budget. It did not add revenue or
did
take
not.
away revenue as the resolution that is later on the agenda does. But the budget does not change because the revenue is the same and the expenditures are the same. So you're incorrect in assuming that that recommendation changed the budget.
Councillor Gatward, once more.
And I'm sorry, I don't want to belabor this, however.
No, it's fine. You have a right.
The $400,000 that was allocated in
Yes.
2017 was for a specific project
Correct.
at the Sillaps Dike for a river access. Council approved that. Council has not approved to take those unspent dollars and do what Community Services is recommending in number
No,
one.
that-
That recommendation was just defeated.
But-
So I don't know what the purpose is of referring it back to Community Services, because this is council-approved budget dollars that should be, if they're going to be reallocated, that should be reallocated by council, because as...
But that's what the motion was before us, so that council could do it. Not that they should, but they could do it. That's the point.
So Council Chambers says he's not changing the budget.
But-
He's not changing the numbers, but he's changing a project in the budget.
The motion was defeated, so it's not before us. That's what I have to say. So we do have a motion now to refer the amount of money. Would you read the motion, Madam Clerk? You've written it down, no doubt.
The motion is to refer the matter of the unspent funds from the Sillaps project to Community Services Committee for further consideration.
And they will have to, if they decide something, it will come back before council for discussion. Councillor Simon.
Mr. Mayor, I understand from the tax department that this has to be clarified tonight in order to get the taxes sent out in a timely fashion.
That is not what is before us.
Thank you. We have a motion that we're going to deal with. Unless there's someone else that has something new to state, I will put the motion, and the motion is
That the matter of the unspent funds from the Sillaps project be referred back to Community Services Committee for further consideration.
all in favor? Opposed? Do you have a score?
That motion is carried.
Carried. Thank you very much. So we'll rush on to Corporate Development Committee report. Thank you.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Coleman, that the Corporate Development Committee report of January 8th be approved, noting that there are 5 items, Mr. Mayor.
Questions of the acting chair, please? Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we're now on to the Public Works is next. Pretty important. Public Works Committee report. Councilor Coleman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Gatward, the Public Works Committee report from January 9th, 2018 be approved, noting there are 4 items.
Why is this such a short report? Thank you. Questions of the
next one will be
chair?
longer.
Questions of the chair, please. None? Councilor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a note, it's not one of the recommendations, but the garbage recyclable pickup, I believe, from what I've seen, it's back to normal. Is that correct? Close.
Any other questions? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we're now to the Planning Advisory Committee report.
Moved by myself, second by Counselor Pierce, that the Planning Advisory Committee report of January 9th, 2018 be approved, there being 9 items.
Questions of the chair, please? Any questions? None? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. That completes the list of reports because the OPP attachment report was dealt with earlier.
But, Mr. Mayor, I do have a different motion. You want me to present it?
Are you sure?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I'm asking
That
Councilor
Brant-
Gatward if she's...
Well, I'll read it, and you can make the determination. That the Brant County OPP Detachment Committee makes the following recommendation from its meeting on January 23rd, 2018. That the concept design of the OPP detachment be approved as presented, and that staff be directed to prepare working drawings and tender documents for the project.
I maintain that's the same motion.
Okay, it wasn't quite, but...
Well,
that's
it
what-
may have been, there may be some different wording,
Yeah.
but it certainly has this
I just wanted to make sure everybody knew. Thank you.
covered. Oh, thank you. We're all right on that? Yes, okay. So that's report. Staff reports, the first is 2018 municipal and school board elections. Question to the electors from the clerk.
Someone has a resolution.
Councillor Powell?
Moved by myself, second by Counselor Simons, that COU-18-01, being the 2018 municipal and school board elections question to the electors, be presented at this time.
Questions? Have any? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. B, Community Health Hub Initiative. Mr. Emerson is lead.
You'd like me to make a few comments on this report before, or there's a recommendation there, but maybe I should make a few comments. We thought that there were 2 steps to this. First, I believe council needs to decide whether you think there's any merit in being involved in any fashion at all. And in the event that you do feel that there's some merit in being involved, or you feel that we should continue to gather information and provide more detail with respect to being involved, then we have the second stage of options, and that is outlined here, where the county could either take a support role, an equity partner role, or a project leader role. And the staff report outlines us taking a leadership role. So I could get into any of these things in a lot more detail, but that's the way the recommendation reads at this stage. In the event that you were to support that recommendation, that the county investigate taking a leadership role, it would be our suggestion that we would go away, work on a business and governance model, look at that costing, look at what tenants would be there and what the revenues would be and all that to make it a profitable venture, and then we would bring that report back to council within a month or 2 for your final decision. So.
Well, as you know, members, council, and citizens, this is a very confused matter. It started many months ago when announced there was a study by the Brantford General Hospital Board, which is, of course, has been replaced and is not in use now, that the recommending that the Willett Hospital be closed. And that was what spurred people to action to get busy working on the possibility of establishing a community health hub. And it's going on quite steadily for a while. And then, of course, as you know, and now we find that the Willett Hospital is being reopened and being occupied by a number of beds. So there are different steps that have taken place, but community health hubs are growing in number and in strength throughout the province of Ontario and are being supported in some ways by the Ministry of Health. And certainly the citizens in our area are looking at the possibility of establishing a community health hub and what services should be rendered by them and what groups should be incorporated and become members. So there is tremendous amount of information that's been accumulated, and I believe there's a meeting tomorrow morning. That's canceled, is it? So there's more information coming forward. There appears to be, because of the tremendous lack of hospital care in parts of this province, there's concern that there must be more available, accessible health care for our citizens. And we all know the active care that's been provided by the Willett Hospital at times when citizens could not use the services of the Brantford General Hospital, couldn't get in and be serviced in what is considered a proper length of time. So it has been supported in many ways, but it's certainly ongoing, and I appreciate the report, the work you've done on it, preparing and giving submitting a report that's certainly making us look at the whole thing with an offer that we continue and bring in a further report on how we could, as a council, be supportive and be involved and work for our citizens, because they're expecting, many are expecting. So members of council, if you wish, and so unfortunately Councillor Cardy is sick tonight because he's certainly been involved in depth in the health care, the prima care, etc. Councillor Simons, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Paul, for that information. Because, for a few reasons, Paris Willett Hospital has always been a Paris hospital, and because it was shut down and proposed to be shut down for good, and also the uncertainty of the Brantford General Hospital, and of the reports we hear from this council and from the newspaper, the media, would it be an advantage for this council to have the interim director or the lady in charge, and I don't know who she is, come to our table, explain to us, bring us up to speed as exactly what's happening so the public can get a good grip on what's going on? Because there's a lot of hearsay out there, there's a lot of information, and who knows if it's correct or not. And now we've added to the mix with this possibility happening at our council. So I'm just wondering if it would be advantageous for them to come to the podium and make a presentation and bring us up to speed as to where we are and they are. So.
Councillor Baumann.
Obviously, as council, through you, your worship, we have a vested interest in the health and well-being of our citizens.
Yes, sir.
when I first heard rumors of the health hub, it seemed to me, and I apologize if I'm mistaken, that it was a way for physicians to have us build an office building for them. And I had a problem with that. Moving forward, I think the tone of that has changed in some of the further communications that will be dealt with in the meeting, which I won't speak to. But I am interested in what a health hub could do for our community, just like I'm interested in what an arena or a park can do for our community, and I see where we could play a leadership role in that. What I heard from the CAO is that this resolution is really just giving staff permission to explore further and bring a report back to see if there's a business case and how we could perform that. So in that sense, I'm in favor of exploring it further so that we can have a good report coming back about how we could make this work, rather than just, rejecting it yay or nay out of hand. And so if we were to support this, and I'm leaning that way, there would still be a business case made, and we would have a chance to say, you know what, this isn't a good idea for us, we're stepping back. And I think that could be made clear, maybe a little bit clearer in the resolution, so that when people read this in the paper, they're not saying, oh, okay, the County of Brant is building a health hub. It's more, no, we're making a resolution to do a good in-depth study of whether we would like to move forward with that.
Could I respond, Your Worship, quickly to that?
Yes, please.
Yes, I verbally outlined that, but that wasn't in the written report. So we could, if you want to, if there's a willingness to go that way, we could work on a resolution here that says that. In fact, I think Michael already has worked that up.
It's noted that this report certainly ties in with Communication 11A, which is from the board of the hub. I don't know whether you examined that or not, but anyway, who was, Councillor Pierce, did you have a...
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, as far as the recommendation here, I don't think there's any, there's no other option but option one. We have to be involved with this. I don't think we can sit back and let this thing be built and not have input into it, so I don't even think it's a question. It's absolutely, we need to be involved with the leadership role.
Thank you. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Paul. You know the subject matter certainly better than I do. Can you explain to me why somebody from the Lynn or the Brant Community Healthcare System isn't taking the lead on this? I mean, we're not asking somebody from the Lynn to help us find a spot for the library, so why aren't they taking the lead on this? Thank you.
Councillor Powell.
Yeah, okay.
When it comes to health care,
Yes?
the main question in my mind, who makes the decision at the provincial level, regional, and the local level? If you would give me a bit of leeway, I'd like to give 3 examples, come to a conclusion, and suggest a motion for this. Okay, the first one, as you know, those who've been here a while, the Willett was almost a full-service hospital at one time. They had the beds, they did operations, they had palliative care.
Correct.
Now, along came the ministry, and they decided this small community, even though we had a hospital, you people don't need it in your health care. So a decision was made by the province. Now, push forward a bit to 2017. The province makes a decision again. We're going to send a supervisor to BGH, Brant County, Brant Community Health. And they gave this person the authority to make decisions. She dismissed the CEO. She dismissed the board of directors. Now, that board of directors was almost self-appointing. Yes. You got on, and that board decided who got on. There was no elections. We elect our education people board, but we don't do it for hospitals. And so those people had their own agenda, and they didn't want to hear from the politicians. So the new supervisor said, I'm going to bring the beds back. And to our great surprise, that hospital that was sitting empty is going to have beds in it again later this month. Now, she also said in a report, there may not be enough room for the family doctors and some of the related medical things. Now, just back a few years ago, the primary care family health doctors wanted to put up a 2 or 3 story building behind our administrative fire hall. And again, somebody up the chain said no, and it never happened. So she said we may not have room for them. Now, whether that's another decision by the government that, for example, the orthopedic surgeon in Brantford, Dr. Wolfrey, his office is now on King George Road in a building near Walmart, just for location. So it sounds like there's decisions being made to move these doctors' offices out of hospitals. Now, there's some reference inferring, okay, why would she do that? Is she looking for more space to make the urgent care bigger? Is she looking for more room to put the beds in? So for now, we're sort of at a loss to know which way she happens to be going. But she does have the authority to make decisions, which is good. Now, just to give a second example to show how these things change so quick. January 1st, Ministry of Health brought in free prescription drugs for anybody under 24. If your parents were millionaires, the government still paid for it. If your parents work for a company that has a drug plant, the government still paid for it. Now, just as an aside, you could take that $431 million, put up 45 100-unit apartments for people with disabilities, low income, and seniors. And that could have started this year. Next year, we would have 90 altogether. The third year, we'd have 135. Now, these would be facilities that would certainly improve the mental health of people. They would be there for 35, 40 years, whatever's involved. Now, the third example, the government at one time decided to take out the regional health offices, and they brought in something called the LHINs, of which we are part of.
Yes,
Now,
that's correct.
the LHINs was giving the money bags. So the LHINs decides where the money goes in our area from here down to Niagara Falls. So they're the ones that determine that. Now, when I look at the recommendations here, option 2, county involvement. Number A, they want finances from the county. They want our staff support. They want us to donate land, and they want us to provide other expertise. In the next paragraph, the county would not be active in the decision-making, the development, or management of the project. Give us your money, but go away, is really what they're saying. If you go down to C, they're suggesting the county take the lead, and that we would provide the funds, we would develop it, we would own it, we would manage the project. Now, that's almost like taking on a small hospital. There are a lot of decisions that have to be made. Now, I'm assuming the county doesn't have the expertise in that area, so we would be hiring people to do a lot of this work. And again, it's still the ministry that makes the decisions no matter what we do. Ministry looks after health, whether we like it that way or not, but that's the way the ball happens to roll right now. So to take that approach and put a lot of money into it with no guarantee what's going to happen. For example, we could put in
a section to do with cataracts in your eyes. Because we have an older population, it's something that's needed. But we saw what happened in Brantford. They brought a team in, so many days a month. There was something happened, so the team ended up moving to London. And we were left out in the cold, so to speak, other than to drive to a place like London. So there are a lot of restrictions when it comes to health.
Oh, yes.
A lot of people would like to get knee surgery, but if the ministry says, in Brantford, for example, you can only do 100 a year, then the other people are on a waiting list that quite often doesn't get much shorter. So my thought would be what Councillor Simon said earlier, we need the supervisor to come to council, tell us what is the short term, what is the long-term plans that you have for the Willett? What are your short and long-term plans for health in Brant County? And what's your short and long-term plans for the Brant Community Health Service? You know, for example, do you have the decision-making power to approve a new hospital in this area? So until we get some of those answers, I would think this is an interesting report, lots of information, but I would certainly want to defer it until we hear from the supervisor in the foreseeable future.
But the problem is, if we don't do something and investigate and come up with a system of some type of participation, we will stand to lose more and more and more, and we've lost more than our people want to put up with at the present time. A lot of people. So, and for me to sit here and talk to you about the Ministry of Health, it's a different world. They've decided how they operate. And as far as, I think it's wonderful that the Willett's reopened, because they've opened up beds that are being used and freed up active treatment beds in BGH, which are extremely badly needed. Right. But this is a request that's come forward from groups of citizens who are anxious to do some work. They see what's happening in other areas with medical community hubs, and to see the possibility here, not only the possibility, but the need for it because of what we have lost in our area. We have not been adequately served with hospital care. Yes, Councillor Baumann.
With all of those points in mind.
Yes, thank you.
And in order to allow us to do further investigation,
yes,
I would like to take a stab at a motion seeking a seconder. And so I would like to leave the first two clauses alone. Whereas the County of Brant has been requested to be involved with the development of a community health hub project. And whereas County of Brant staff, following a comprehensive review of the healthcare environment in the area, concurs that a community health hub project would be a positive contribution to the delivery of healthcare services in the community. And then I'm going to strike the last two paragraphs and replace it with, therefore, that staff be directed to develop a comprehensive business case, including a governance model for the development of a community health hub, and that staff bring this business case to council for its consideration and deliberation.
Second by Councillor Reid.
That way we can, if I may speak to it, that way we can do the investigation comprehensively, have staff do that, bring that back here so we can debate it with full information so that we can consider it.
It's crucially needed. Councillor Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, in essence, what I've asked for, it's not going to happen unless I'll put it in a motion that I would like to see the director or someone come from the Brantford General to report to us, to bring us up to speed as to what's going on. I didn't disallow this because I think this is great. This could be in conjunction with, so.
Councillor Baumann.
If I can respond to that, I think the interim administrator of the hospital would have nothing to add to this discussion because the hospital's not in the business of building health hubs.
I would like to hear what they've got to say as well where we are with the health in general in our community.
Well, and I think
that's what I was asking for.
The CAO and myself have met with the administrator. We've met with the LINs. We've met with the sub-LINs. We've been attempting to get the information that we can for the basis of a report.
Yeah, I'm sure if the request was made by council, it's almost separate from that resolution in my mind, but if the request was made from council, you could make that request, see if they come. But as the mayor said, we've met with the supervisor and the interim acting CEO, and they have indicated to us all along that they were looking for options for the Willett Hospital.
Yes.
To integrate it into part of the Brant Community Healthcare System, which is the Brantford General and the Willett, essentially. And that's what they indicated early. They were looking at all options, and then they came up with getting the second floor going. I toured through there today. I stuck my head and walked through, and it's fully functional.
Yes.
Beautiful. It's really nice. I went through there
As it
2
was.
months ago, and it was quite depressing, and it's really active and really happening now.
As it was.
It's my understanding that they might not commit to this at this stage, because they're looking at all options, but urgent care seems to be solidly kept there and possibly even expanding. And this is just my own view, but it's based on what I've heard. If you look at the problems at the Brantford General and the emergency, and there are plans to deal with that, but it's going to be a few years out and a number of dollars to resolve that. Common sense would tell you that closing down the urgent care, or maybe not even, and not even expanding, but to expand it, would make sense with the current situation and the emergency. And they're working through this now. I'm not sure what they can say publicly, because they haven't made final decisions. So the mayor and I were quite comfortable that we had an understanding where the Brant Community Healthcare System was coming from. And they have also indicated to the tenants at the Willett, our family health team, 3 doctors, and several other related agencies, that, you know, you should be looking into the future for new space. And that, to me, is an indication that they're saying into the future, the first floor might move into hospital-type facilities and care. But they probably can't stand in front of this council and say that. And I'm only saying this based on what my sense is, but it has no stance behind as such. So it's in that climate that the family health team and the doctors that are in there and the couple other agencies are actively looking for space somewhere in the broader community. And this is where we led to this, so.
Oh, Councilor Weed, sorry.
We've got a motion on the floor and a
Yes.
second. Let's talk about the motion on the floor.
Yes, sir. For those, does anyone, Councilor Gatler?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I read this and I thought, sure, we want more health care, our population's aging. A
want
community
adequate
health care
healthcare.
hub sounds great. The only thing I am opposed to is paying for it with municipal dollars. I think the Ministry of Health has many more millions of dollars than we do, and they should pay for it, or the Linds should give us grants or money for this health hub, but I do not see
Again, point of order.
investing
Your worship.
Our
Other
money.
communities,
We're
I
not
have to
discussing-
point out to you that other communities are actively involved in many ways. And they're very involved in active hospitals supporting them. So it does
And we
vary.
have in the past.
No, just a moment.
Yeah.
It varies from place to place. So
Yes.
people are concerned enough about health care to participate and support it
Yeah.
financially.
And we have in
We
the
will now
past,
move on to the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not finished.
I know that.
We have in the past given money to the hospital. Yes, we have,
But
because,
Again,
that's
point of
long
order,
ago.
your worship. This is not speak, the motion is to
That's long
investigate
ago.
this,
That's in the past.
not to
but the
talk.
business plan that's going to be drawn up, as the CAO and Councillor Booma's motion mentions, I would hope that that is not going to put the county in charge of this project or to build it? Because
Madam
that's not...
Councillor, any action taken in the report will be voted upon, considered, and voted upon by council. No one can go ahead and do things on their own.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor, and it's not our mandate, healthcare, even though it's...
Correct, but do you want health care?
It's really important. I agree with that, it's really important.
Thank you.
But I want the ministry to pay for it.
Councillor Miller, I hope I'm going in the right sequence. I'll get to you, Councillor Powell. Councillor Miller?
We'll try it again. Through you, can I go to the CAO and get an answer to my question? Thank you.
I think your question was, why aren't the Ministry of Health paying for this, or the LIN?
No, why aren't they taking the lead on this? Like I said, we don't ask them to take a lead on finding a library spot for us in Paris. Why are we taking the lead on this?
It's a local initiative, that's why. It's a local group, it's a local initiative. And that's what's happening any place. I just came from the conference, the rural, and there was a session there by Wes Gray, and you should hear what they're doing for their people.
It's just that...
I'm not saying...
I'll let the CAO...
I could maybe answer it this way. It's our understanding from having talked to the LIN people and the Ministry of Health people and the Brant Community Healthcare System people, that this kind of thing is not what they're doing anywhere else in the province, nor here. However, having said that, there are provincial dollars go into this accommodation. For example, the family health team, all their accommodation is paid for by the Ministry of Health. So all the nurse practitioners, all the clinics, all of this, it's all provincial dollars pays for that. But they're not building the capital. I should also clarify that what Michael and I envision, if in any recommendation to the council and any business plan analysis, would not be spending municipal dollars to build something and the dollars are gone. It would be a business plan that shows how we could facilitate it, build it, and pay back the money we put into it, and possibly even there'd be a profit. Because you look around the province in other locations, the private sector in many locations would line up. If they had secured tenants, a family health team that, let's say, with provincial dollars paying for their accommodation, that committed to a 10-year lease or something like, I'm just throwing numbers out. If they had doctors that committed to this, and they had a pharmacy, private sector pharmacy, and a private sector labs that committed to taking place, and there was a business model that made sense, it would be built.
Yes.
So that's the kind of thing that Michael and I are envisioning, that it might be a win-win. It could, if the numbers all work together, it could be a win-win where the county taxpayer, with some of the reserve money it has, uses it to facilitate something, but gets it back with a profit. And on the other hand, we facilitated the movement. We've done the same kind of thing in a slightly different way with, for example, the renewable energy projects. Although we didn't fund, we funded them with county reserves. There's a payback. We'll get all the money we put into it, and then we will have profit for a number of years to come. And we have several millions of dollars worth of these renewable energy projects out there.
Thank you.
So it's a win-win in that case. And if you believe in renewable energy and that kind of thing, which I think most of us do, it's facilitated that, and yet it's allowed us the county taxpayer to make a little money. The same kind of thing potentially could happen here. And this is what Michael and I envision when we talk about option 3, a leadership role, and the county taking some role. It's not to fund it, give a grant and be done with it, because as you say, traditionally, that's not the role of municipal government. That's at the provincial and or from time to federal government level. But we could be the facilitator of this to the benefit of all parties. And we think there might be something there, and that's why we're asking you, give us a chance to look into this put together a plan, and if it doesn't work, you have the final, obviously, the final veto to say, no, that's not good enough.
Councillor Powell.
I appreciate what our CEO said in response to the motion by Councillor Buma, and how he said it was wonderful to walk down that second floor of the Willet and see what Buchanan was done. Now, just think back 6 months ago, when Mr. Hornell was the CEO, and we had that board. And a decision was made. This time it went in our favor, but it can just as quickly go the other way when you're dealing with the ministry.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Anyone else? The motion, please.
You could just let me know if I'm wrong. The motion is, whereas the County of Brant has been requested to be involved with the development of a community health hub project, and whereas County of Brant staff, following a comprehensive review of the healthcare environment in the area, concurs that a community health hub project would be a positive contribution to the delivery of healthcare services in the community. Therefore, that staff be directed to develop a comprehensive business case, including a governance model for a community health hub, and bring this forward to council for consideration and deliberation.
Anyone wish to comment? If not, pardon? A recorded vote, all in favor? Opposed? I'm sure it was carried. We're over the page. Item 10, information reports. There are none that I'm aware of, so we'll move on to communications. And the first is the Community Health Hub of Brant Planning Group, on a letter sent to us. And I expect in the fact that we have just approved a course of action, that you would advise that group of our proposed course of action in reply. I don't know whether you see anything else necessary at this time or not.
I don't think so.
Can we receive it then with the reply to be forwarded in view of it? Moved and seconded. Councillor Weed, all in favor? Opposed, carried. And Ontario Good Roads Association is writing to us, but it's addressed to the clerk rather than to the mayor, I see. But that's fine. Requests for support of reforms to the municipal class environmental assessment, and is this ever required? Because these environmental assessments are costing municipalities unbelievable amounts of money. They're strangling them and just delaying projects. You wouldn't believe it. I talked to various mayors about this, or they talk to me until I think we've got it bad, but they have it worse. Councillor Balma, sorry to delay you.
I appreciate all of your comments, Your Worship. I would make a motion that we receive the communication and put on the floor, or in response, that we move the recommendation as presented in the communication, seeking a seconder.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Coleman. Discussion. Any comments or question? Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was really glad to see this come forward.
It's urgent.
I'm glad that Good Roads took a stand, and I mean, as it mentioned in the correspondence, this has been going on for years, so
Good report.
I hope now that all municipalities get behind this and they actually do something and take action.
So, have we put the motion? We haven't yet.
It's been moved and seconded, we just need to call.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Questions by members? Councillor Chambers, please.
Mr. Mayor, I'm wondering if I could ask a question through you to our fire chief.
Yes. He's stayed in.
Chief, I noticed an article in the paper the other day. I forget exactly which day, it doesn't matter. There was a picture of the sign in front of the Paris fire station, and it says 2018, 4 fires, 8 dead, no working alarms. It would seem to me that this is a very serious issue. You mentioned at the community services meeting that there were several structure fires in the county where there were no working smoke alarms. I'm wondering if you could just take a couple minutes to maybe highlight this issue and give your opinion on why and where and whereas and wherefore.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Through you, Mr. Mayor. You're right. The postage that we put up on all the stations actually denotes some of the fire loss that we've had over the courses here in Ontario. And unfortunately, since I was hired here, we've had, I believe it was 7 structure fires, and of that, we've only had one of them that had functioning, working smoke alarms. Smoke alarms are a requirement under the fire code in Ontario, as are carbon monoxide alarms. In the fire service, not having a working smoke alarm and having a fire occur in your home is almost, if you're there, it's almost a death sentence if you're now unable to react to the fire itself. One of the things that we've done currently is take a very active approach to educate the public so that we don't have to be one of those statistics happening in the county. I'm happy to say that through our social media campaigns, we're reaching a lot of people and getting a lot of recognition provincially. The fire marshal is promoting some of the items that we're putting forward. Many of you may have saw over the Christmas break that we ran a campaign called 12 Days of Holiday Safety. We had phenomenal feedback on that through social media, with some of our posts hitting somewhere, about 6,500 people were interacting with the posts on social media through either Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. So when we look at it from that perspective, we see how far reaching that message is going. And we're moving in a new direction, actually, with a YouTube channel to get firefighters on video speaking to some of the issues that we're dealing with, specifically the smoke alarm issues. So I'm hoping that through this education campaign, we don't have to sit here and talk about those statistics specifically here at the county.
Councillor Chambers?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I commend the fire chief for taking this initiative, and it's a very important initiative, and I hope that all members of council and all staff and all citizens recognize and realize that smoke detectors do save lives, and anything we can do to promote that is good for all of our citizens. And I thank you and commend you for the initiative that you've taken.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Simon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the fire chief. Are smoke alarms mandatory in homes and structures?
Yes, they are.
And if they're mandatory, would the insurance not be valid if a fire happens and the structure burns down? Would the insurance be invalid?
We are actually reaching out to the Insurance Bureau of Canada right now to see how that's being affected. Because if that becomes a situation, we can actually utilize that to build the education component.
Exactly.
Because it now becomes a potential loss in assets to the individual. So,
exactly.
So that's something that we're researching right now.
Okay, good. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, the fire chief's here. In Woodstock, I noticed sometimes the fire guys will go around and knock on doors and say, do you have a working smoke detector, a working carbon monoxide detector? Now, I know they're a professional force there, and we got the volunteer guys, but I'm just wondering if you thought maybe targeting, obviously you wouldn't go to a new neighborhood or an affluent neighborhood, but usually the lower middle class ones, that's where you tend to find them not working. I wonder if you have any thoughts to maybe targeting those areas.
Councillor Miller, you're taking all the steam out of my presentation here. That's actually something that we're working on. As you saw probably a couple of days ago, an article in the Expositor that spoke to both Chief Cascanet and I speaking to the smoke alarm issue. That was the first article that we've done. We're working on 3 additional articles coming forward, and it's all looking to ramp up in the summertime, where each of our 8 stations, I'm going to be giving them the direction to take at least 100 smoke alarms out to various communities, such as like you spoke to, and we're going to target those places so that we're able to ensure that those people are compliant with the fire code.
Anyone else? Thank you for your response.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate. Thank you for saying. I know you've enjoyed it. Thank you. Any other questions by members of council? None at this time. Resolutions. There was one proposed. Is disallowed because we dealt with the matter. We'll go on to other Councillor Pierce, excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could, my apologies for not bringing it up earlier in the night. I've got one item under other business, if council would allow me. It's a question to...
Oh, just a moment. Oh, okay. Yes, we are at other business, correct.
Okay. I'm good to go then? Thank you. It was brought up about, I think it was last council meeting or the council meeting prior to that, the potential of me having pecuniary interest by sitting as a chairman on the Community Service Committee while my son is a full-time employee of the county. It was discussed that night in council session, and it was discussed that I should look into the situation further to ensure that I was not. So I did look into a couple things and have an email back from our Integrity Commissioner. I'm wondering if I could just take a minute to read it here. It says to state...
Proceed.
Thank you. The statement of the question of whether you're automatically a conflict of interest for a parent to have an adult employed at the County of Brant or to serve as chairman of a committee, specifically a committee which has some potential for influence related to the employment of the adult child. There are 2 sources of rule for conflicts of interest, and they are relevant to Brant councillors: the County Code of Conduct and the Municipal Conflict of Interest Acts. In both sources, where a child of a member has a pecuniary interest in a matter, it is deemed that the member also has a pecuniary interest in the matter. Neither source is interested in conflict other than pecuniary conflicts. Pecuniary conflicts are those which involve money or things that are worth money. Conflicts such as preferring a course of action because it favors an individual or family member is non-pecuniary ways and are not considered unlawful in Ontario. Both the Code and the Municipal Conflict Act provide a course of action for a member to be found in pecuniary conflict, namely, the member is to declare a conflict and not participate in any debate or voting. If a member is in camera, the member is to leave the meeting room. The writers of the Code and the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act clearly contemplated that members of councils would occasionally be conflicts of interest involving family members and provided a mechanism through which the appropriate governance could be continued. Therefore, in the case that you described, in order to remain in accordance to the rules of the Code of Conduct and the Municipal Conflict of Interest Acts in any matter where your son's pecuniary interest is at stake, for example, salary, promotion, or benefits, you should recuse yourself and not take part in the debate or vote. You should also step out as chair for those discussions. Any other matters that come before the committee or council related to the arenas, such as scheduling events, signage, parking, etc., would in no way activate the conflict of interest rule and would not bar you from being on that council committee or acting as chair. As you noted, such a rule would be nonsensical, as it would bar any person who has a parent or child, spouse, or employed with the county from being either an elected or volunteer member of any community. This might make governance in very small communities almost impossible and would certainly undermine the promotion of the community engagement and community decisions. I would therefore state that I advise all council members to always exercise the utmost caution when considering whether something may or may not be a pecuniary conflict of interest, but do not see any issue with you continuing on that committee, as well as being chair of that committee. I trust this will be helpful. So, in fact, it's not a pecuniary interest to the councillor that stated that it was, and I can give you a copy of this letter if you wish.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the information. That's important for all of us to know, and we appreciate it. You bring it forward.
Yeah, I can send it.
Thank you. Okay. Any other member of council have an item of other business before we rush on? Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to refer to Councillor Simon's suggestion a few minutes ago regarding inviting the BGH supervisor to come and educate us regarding the Brant Community Healthcare System and her plans at the Willet. I think Councillor Powell alluded to that as well. And I think that's an excellent idea so that we know, I know possibly you and CAO Emerson know, but we haven't been apprised of that information. So I would like to suggest that we invite her to speak to us.
I think what we need to do is authorize the CAO to check into the matter. I'm not sure whether she has time or will, because as you know, we've been invited to have a representative on a new committee, or on a new, was it term board, which is replacing the previous board, and I don't know where that stands or when it's going to start.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Did we get a letter
The motion was passed
regarding?
by this council.
Pardon?
The motion was passed by this council.
Oh,
So
to
we'll-
request that, yeah.
Pardon?
To request that, and did we get a response?
No, we were requested to appoint a member, and we did that. So that committee has not started to function yet, as far as I know.
And it was
But-
you we appointed.
We will check into that matter, but I don't know, she's a very busy person.
Well, the council could certainly extend the invitation.
An
That's your
invitation,
prerogative, obviously.
that'd be the way to do
Yeah.
it.
Either
We'll
the-
look into it.
Either the supervisor or the CEO, they
Yes.
kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
If you wanted to.
I thought you didn't want to be involved in hospital. Okay, we'll check that out. We'll check that out and see if it's possible. Any other item of other business? Councillor Miller?
What did we do with 13A?
Pardon? No, the matter has been dealt with. 13, did you say?
13A, yeah.
It's not before us because the matter has been dealt with.
In what?
My ruling, I can be overruled, as you know,
Okay, tell me why you overruled it then.
because the matter's been dealt with.
I don't know how, could you explain to me, like, how we dealt with it?
Pardon?
How did we deal with it?
How do I know?
No, how did we deal with
I'm
it?
presiding.
How did we deal with it, Mr. Mayor? Maybe I missed that.
We concluded the matter, is what I feel. With that, any other item of other business? If not, we have a list of in-camera items to deal with next, to be followed by the bylaws. Thank you for our guests, thank you for attending. We appreciate it. And
There's a motion to go in camera somewhere.
oh, you have it out there someplace?
Myself, Senator Councillor Powell, that the county grant convene in camera to discuss the following matters. Advise on the subject of solicitor's client privilege, COU 1803, legal opinion reinsurance RFP. 2 is proposed acquisition of land by municipality, COU 18-05-Kingsville. 3 is education session, Reading Law / Harrison Town Hall, verbal presentation by Bradley. And 4 is personal
16 and, yeah. It isn't. Well, just a moment, please. Moved and seconded. Why have we separated 16 from the business?
This is the place.
Pardon?
This is just the open session report that was deferred to be considered after the discussion.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Simons, COU 1802 insurance RFP. I won't read the whole motion, you have it before you, regarding the option 1 or option 2. Oh, I guess I should make a decision. I'll just put it on the floor, option 1, for an 18-month term commencing February 28th, 2018, and a cost of $1,294,988.88, including all applicable taxes to BFL Canada. And let's debate.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Second. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. And I can read the whole thing, but I'll read it as presented, and it was circulated. Let's move on, salt, second on the cabinet. Aboriginal Land Kingdom. Oh, and it's seconded. Any question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Bylaws.
Mr. Mayor, before we get into bylaws, I want to finish this off with what we were talking about before, the old town hall.
Thank you.
Sorry, Reedy. I think I think this council needs to show some direction. If I can speak, Mr. Mayor, and it's time that it happened. And put some of these items to bed and move on.
But you won't put them to bed while people are looking for things to complain about and to make it difficult. If they take it on as a personal mission to defeat something, it's...
I'll move motion that we look at the gypsum agreement and look at that council needs to take a bigger role in the whole project. At the table.
Fine. Well, the trouble is council has been taking a big, because we have councillors who attend and then use the information from the meetings against the committee, and you can't operate a committee like that. You cannot. Move. Who's you? Is there a seconder? Is there a seconder? Councillor Ballmer, thank you. Do you want it read, members of council?
If I may ask a question, is it the time to ask?
Yes, please.
Councillor Coleman, could you tell me what kind of involvement the council would like to take?
What is she saying?
What kind of involvement would the council like to take?
No, we will discuss. Yeah. And I want to talk to Councillor Pierce. Because you're on the committee, that's all. In view of your strong views, which I appreciate.
You should be leading.
So my question is not to be accepted, is that the idea?
What is it, Councillor Ballmer?
I guess my question would be that, would that also answer the question of if we're doing due diligence to the tax funding that's going to be going into this project with the current structure? Right, will we be reviewing that also?
I think we need to look at the whole thing.
That's fine. That's a given.
Good. Then I'm happy to second.
Why part of it? Councillor Goward?
Mr. Mayor, now that we're in open session, we didn't have our in-camera discussion in open session, but there seems to be some will to talk about it now. But there was no notice of motion given to discuss this in open session. And I got caught on a procedural issue earlier in the agenda that there was no notice of motion. So why don't we defer this until another meeting when we can get some options in a report so that everybody can look at it ahead of time instead of just considering it at this hour of the night. And we're talking about, should there be taxpayers' money and all this, all the different things that were talked about tonight. I think it needs to be organized to be fair to the committee and the
Point of
members
order,
that
Your
work
Worship.
so
I
hard.
think the motion
And-
on the floor perfectly answers the questions that is looking to provide us that report to council so that we can make headway. So you're absolutely correct. So I'm glad you're in favor of the motion.
Call the vote.
There's no notice of motion.
Just call the vote.
Can I just hear the, I'm sorry, I was out of the motion, sorry.
Yeah, let Heather read it.
If I could, Your Worship, just a point of order, requesting the clerk, if someone asks for a notice of motion or to waive the rules when we're doing something from the floor at a council meeting, what does procedure say? Because as a rule, we entertain motions at council. I know in Brantford, they always have to waive the rules first, and I think in one of your responses to me when I've asked that before, sorry, you've said that it's at request. I just want a clarification on that. So if Councillor Gatward is asking for notice of motion or to waive the rules, should we do that first?
Yes, we should have a motion to waive the notice requirements.
I guess, Mr. Mayor, this is a point of order in that to suspend the rules is what the motion to suspend the rules is essentially what you're doing. Is notice of motion, yeah, you can suspend the rules of notice of motion, but you can't suspend the rules for reconsideration.
But if my understanding is correct, and I apologize for talking more, but because John's got to go, but as a rule, this council does not ask for a motion to waive the rules unless it's specifically requested by a member on the meeting that comes forward. Yes? Excellent.
Yes.
Very good. So since it's requested by Councillor Gatward that in absence of notice of motion from Councillor Coleman, that we have to have a motion to waive the rules in order to consider this motion. So,
Yes.
Yes, you need a vote.
So are we having one?
I made the motion, it was
Yes, you
seconded,
did.
call the vote
Moved
on
and
to waive the
seconded.
rules.
That was to answer that. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Now we can.
Thursday day. Now the motion.
Okay, sorry, let me get back to it. That we review the gifting agreement and council's role in the Bucket Center project.
That's the secret to it. That's the secret.
That we review the gifting agreement and council's role in the Bucket Center project.
Okay, any question?
Could I suggest that that could be modified in the spirit of what some of the councilors saying, that the staff be directed to come back with a list of options with respect to gifting agreement and future role for council or something like that. Otherwise, it just sort of hangs there.
I would like to be included in that.
Or staff and the mayor, yeah, I should say. Yeah.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. John, sorry about that. First reading bylaws as listed. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Brant, bylaws now be read the second time, bylaw number 1-18 through bylaw number 12-18.
Second reading of bylaws as listed. All in favor? Does anyone, any member of council wish to question any bylaw or propose a change to any bylaw listed? If not, please proceed.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Brant, the following bylaws now be read a third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Bylaw number 1-18 through bylaw number 12-18.
Third and final reading of bylaws. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. That completes the agenda, and hope to see you early on the 20th of February.